What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video. That's right, if you've seen the thumbnail, you know what we're doing already. We are editing your photos. I'm sorry it's taken us a while to get to this video. After months and months of talking about how we're going to start this little mini-series called the Editing Suite, we're finally going to do it, and today I am editing your photos. Loads of you guys sent me photos. Thank you so much for doing that. That's really awesome to see. A few of you guys didn't quite follow the guidelines that I had set. That, of course, you might remember, was that you had to send either raw photos or large JPEG files. A lot of you guys sent me really small JPEG files, which I couldn't do much with. The other thing was that you had to send it via an attachment on the email, and a lot of you guys sent me like links to downloads and stuff like that, and unfortunately, look, just to protect my computer and viruses and everything else, I can't do any of that either, I'm afraid. It has to be an attachment on the email. So unfortunately, it did mean that a few of you guys weren't able to be involved with your photos, but please carry on sending them to that email address. Just a reminder, that is RSP, edit my shot, send it to there, and we can pick it up in future because there will be more episodes of this series, I promise. If you're excited about this video, do me a favour, hit the like button. It helps me out loads on my channel. It basically helps YouTube to think, oh, this guy's videos must be okay. We will share them with more people, and that's why I ask you to do it every time. I really appreciate it for you guys that do. Think about subscribing if you haven't already. Loads of other videos to come on my channel which you might enjoy. Right, no messing around. Let's turn around to the computer and let's start editing some of your photos. Okay guys, so we are around here at the computer, going to go through these photos. We have got 7 photos lined up for you guys today. I know 7 doesn't sound like a lot, but by the time we get through them and edit them all, concerned that might get to be too much of a longer video if we do too many. But I'm going to try and do more of these, like I said, so we will get to some more photos, don't worry. Right, let's get in and see what we got first. Okay guys, so first up we have got this basketball shot. This was sent to me, and man, I apologise if I pronounce this name wrong, but this was sent to me by Giannis Alexopoulos. I hope that's kind of right. I'm sorry if it's not. Thank you, Giannis, for sending the photo. Let's have a look and see what we got going on. So, cool shot, man. Reverse dunk, right? Now, the biggest thing I'm noting with this straight away is I'm assuming there is some kind of like net or fence or something in front of the crowd here, I guess, to stop them throwing stuff. I know the basketball can get kind of rowdy over there in the Greek league, right? I'm assuming this is the Greek league. Janice, your name sounds Greek. I apologise if I'm totally wrong. Right, let's have a quick go at this. So first thing I would do is I would just straighten it up. So I've got that backboard straight. It feels to me like that's kind of where it needs to be. Then the next thing I would do is crop it. Now, there's a lot of dead space either side of the player, so I would go to a portrait photo, and I would kind of come in with something probably like maybe like this to kind of get it a little bit closer. Really kind of make it about that reverse dunk. I think that is the kind of crop that I would go for. Now, first thing I want to try and do is see if I can tweak something with this fence, and for me that's probably going to involve, let's see what happens if we play with the contrast here a little bit, and let's see what happens if we bring the darks down. Does that make it worse? A little bit, but just slightly. Tiny little bit. Now, the dehaze tool I find is quite good with stuff like this. Because if you look at that, right, the more I dehaze it, the more you struggle to see that fence. The trouble is that's way too much, right? It looks awful like that. So I'm just going to go a little bit, and then I'm just going to bring up the shadows as well in line with that. Shadows come up. We've got a bit of a green cast on this image, partly because of his uniform and partly because of the kit in the back. So I'm just going to tweak the tint slightly, see if I can take some of that away. Going to just brighten it up generally. Then where I've done that, I'm just going to play with that contrast a tiny bit more. Vibrance, not much. Just going to play with the vibrance a little bit. It's already fairly vibrant colours, like with the blue and the orange, so I don't want to mess with that too much. Come down. Right, noise reduction. I don't like messing with noise reduction much, but I'm just going to tweak this ever so slightly here. Just see if it makes a little bit of a difference. Maybe that's about right. Just going to come back up here as well because I feel like I've made it slightly too blue now. There we go. That feels about right. Tiny little bit of vignette, I reckon. There we go. Janice, I would say for me, that's my image. Cool. I hope you like it, man. Let's see whose we've got next. So, Josh Dixon, thank you for sending in Ice Hockey Man. I hardly ever edit ice hockey, so I'm excited by this one. Okay, cool. So, look, first thing is I did with that last image, right? My first task for me is going to be to straighten it and crop it. So I'm going to straighten it using these like posts in the background, because the horizon won't be level. Like if I leveled it to that horizon, see, it looks even worse. So instead I'm going to level it to the upright, which for me is about probably about there. It's hard, right? Because with the perspective, these ones lean to the left and these ones lean to the right. So you kind of want to do it with like these middle ones and perhaps a little bit with the goalpost here. But for me, I would say it's probably around there. You see how we've got this one there near enough straight. The goalpost is straight as well. Next thing up is I'm going to crop this in slightly. Now, of course, we want to get the puck and we want to get those players. We're going to need to keep that ref in the background, umpire ref, I don't know what you call him, because if you start to chop him off, it's going to look weird. So you want to keep all of him in there, and I would bring it down and then just slightly upwards. In fact, you know what, I think we can even come in slightly more on this side, take out some of that dead space, as long as we don't chop that ref's head. Bam, there we go, that looks good for me. Now, first thing is, I want to play with the exposure on this. Now, real tough exposure, because you've got real dark in the background and then real bright highlights down here. So, of course, that makes it a really hard image to expose. Now, if I just increase the exposure, the players would look better, but then the ice starts to get blown out. So instead, although actually I'm going to tweak ever so slightly, but instead I'm just going to bring up the shadows, and then I'm actually going to take down the highlights ever so slightly. That's not far off. I think I also just need to play with the contrast, because that's probably going to help a little bit with some of this piece in here. Cool. I need to play a bit with white balance, because I've got a slightly blue tinge, it feels to me. Let's see what happens if I warm it up ever so slightly. That's too far. Back one. There we go. It's about there. Now, for me, images with lots of white around the edge like this, they help ever so slightly if you add a tiny little bit of vignette. Now, you don't want to go too far, because otherwise it just starts to look real dark in the corners, but just a tiny bit, right? I'm talking like kind of -5, minus, okay, so we've actually gone all the way to -19. But you see what I mean? Just adds a tiny little bit of texture in here without you really noticing that we've done it. Just going to get that brightness, I think, up once more. Tiny little tweak on vibrance, clarity ever so slightly. Haze. There we go. Perfect. Okay, cool. And we're gonna, I should probably say, guys, I'm gonna sharpen all these images on export, which I actually tend to do like a fairly sort of general sharpen, rather than getting too worried about the sharpening in Lightroom for photos like this. But you'll see what I mean when we get towards the end. Right, nice one, Josh. Let's go to the next photo. Okay, we've got one from Neil Bastin. We've got a landscape shot. Nice one. Man, I like this shot. I'm really excited about this one. So let's have a look now. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here, Neil, I hope you don't disagree with me, I'm going to knock out a lot of this stuff on the right-hand side, because for me, this image is about this boat here, or this yacht, and this mountain range in the background. So I'm actually going to chop this right in. Do we leave that little bird? No, I think we take that bird out, and we're going to bring this down in like this. Not going to come too far, probably about there. And then we're just going to straighten it to try to get that horizon about right. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Yeah, I do. I think that looks nice. Right, let's start playing with stuff. Now, don't need to do anything with the warmth on this, the white balance. I think we're probably going to, let's see what happens as we do this. Yeah, not too far. That's good. Tiny bit of clarity and tiny bit of vibrance, just as a good starting point for us. Okay, just going to bring the shadows up slightly just to make it so this isn't too dark right here. But again, not too much, just a tiny bit. Perfect. Going to tweak that vibrance a bit more. I really want to get these blues out of this image because you've got so much lovely blue in here, but it works, right? It's the different textures of blue, almost from here into the lighter blue, the darker blue, through the mountains and the sky. You've got a real like blue themed image here, which I really enjoy. Again, I'm going to add a little bit of vignette. You guys will notice I have some level of vignette in pretty much all my shots. That's too much. About there. Yep. I think that's about it, Neil. That's what I would do with that photo. I hope you like it. I hope you like it. Right. What do we got next? Oh, this is one from Doug Cooper. Actually, a good friend of mine who sent this in. This is his boy, Zach. I'm playing a bit of rugby. Right, let's have a play with this photo. So, first thing I'm going to do with this one is to crop it down. Now, this is a really hard crop here, actually, because I want to make it about the player with the ball being chased by this player without the ball. Now, the trouble is, right, to just bring that in, you then have this guy like half coming in the edge of the photo. The trouble is, if I bring it in close enough that he's not there, you lose this guy's foot. So you've got to make those horrible decisions of what's better, to keep that guy half coming in the picture or to lose that guy's foot. For me, I think I would probably keep his foot and have the top half of him coming in. Now, the problem is there, when you start to expand the crop this way, you then start to have these people in the background who've got their heads chopped off. Now, that's okay because they're actually fairly crushed. They're not in focus, they're in the background, but still, I want to bring it up enough that you just about get their faces in. Not all of the faces, because we're not going to get these ones at the top, and that's okay for me, because otherwise we're going to have too much of a lopsided image. But this way, I think we've got the top half of this player coming in, got a little bit of his leg. I actually like the way his leg is backwards because it means we haven't got another random foot coming in down here. And this player on the left, sorry pal, you are chopped out of this photo. Let's straighten it up ever so slightly, bring it back down a little bit. Because remember, we want the focus of this photo to be about this guy here, right? Because he's the one who's running with the ball. When our crop's too much over here, he's in the photo, but the image isn't about him anymore. It's about these guys chasing him. Whereas when it's over here, the image for me is now about this player here with the ball. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So let's see how that looks. That looks okay to me. That looks pretty good. Let me just straighten it up slightly more. Perfect. Okay, cool. Right, let's play with some of the colours and stuff. So, first of all, it looks a little bit cold, a little bit of blue tinge, so I'm just going to tweak it up once. There we go. That's better. Going to add a little bit of contrast to this because I think that will help it. It has tiny bit of clarity. You guys see I don't mess with clarity much, just add a tiny little bit here and there. Want to get this vibrance up a bit, get these yellows and blues and greens out of this image. Shadows up slightly and highlights down slightly, just so I take out that highlight on the face here and some of this shine over here. I think we're actually nearly there. Just gonna literally one tiny bit on there. Up slightly, yeah, perfect. Okay, there we go. I think, yeah, I'm happy with that. Doug, hope you like it. Nice, right, what we got next? Let's have a look, guys. Okay, next up, we are back to another landscape photo. Now, this one is from Eduardo. Apologise, Eduardo, if I say this wrong. Batista, I'm guessing Batista. Nice photo, lovely, like a night photo, right? Really like this shot, it's great. Let's have a look at what we need to do with this. Okay, so first up, as before, I am going to crop and straighten slightly. My straighten's fairly easy. I just want to make sure that this piece is absolutely upright, which it is with just a tiny tweak like that. Next thing, my eye was drawn to whatever these shadows are down here. So I want to take those out of the image like that. And then that means we've got loads of dead space up here. So I want to bring that down a little bit. I don't want to chop too much of this because I want to be able to show like the long runoff of this bridge or waterway that we've got going on here. So I don't want to bring it all the way like in here because I want this to trail all the way out the side of the image. But that's kind of too much, probably around there. Stuff I've deliberately tried to keep. I'm trying to keep all these light runoffs into the water because those really make this image. Of course, I want to keep a bit of texture in the sky and a little bit of the colours coming from the lights on the bridge. So these are interesting images to play with, right? Now with images like this, I really recommend like going through these sliders and play around. Like watch what happens when you take the highlights all the way down or all the way up. What happens when you bring the shadows all the way down or all the way up? Like really play with some of these sliders and have a look and see what it does, right? Contrast. Like, see, you put the contrast all the way up. Actually, some of these reflections in the bottom look really cool, but then this is too much over here. You bring it all the way down, you can see everything a bit better, but the image is just washed out, right? So you see what I mean? You can really start to play with stuff. I actually think we want the contrast up a little bit here because I want this to be a bit darker down here, which I like. But then Actually, I'm going to bring the exposure up ever so slightly. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring the exposure up until I'm happy with the top half of the image, because I quite like a little bit of light in here. But then I'm going to bring the vibrance up to get the colours. You'll see what I'm going to do with the rest of it in a minute. Little tweak on clarity. Dehaze, not so much of a problem. Right, down to the vignette. I'm going to play with this a little bit. And then I'm going to use a gradient filter across this water, because I quite liked, when I upped that clarity, how it kind of really brought the lights out of the water like that. Now, this is already a previous gradient filter I've used before, so that's actually a bit much. I'm just going to reset that contrast down, and I don't want it to be too dark. You see what happens if we go too dark with it? It's too much. But just enough that you still see all those light streaks coming in, but that it like dark, because you see what I mean, right? You don't want all this down the bottom, all this detail down here. So we're just going to bring that down a bit, ever so slightly, minus, where are we? Minus about half a stop there. That should do nicely. There we go. I like that image. I think actually it just needs a tiny, I feel like it's not entirely straight. Maybe just like that. Yeah, that feels better. There you go, Eduardo. I hope you like that, man. Right, let's have a look. We've got a couple more. Okay, it's a photo from Jeff McCann. Thanks for sending this in. I think you said this was your daughter or your daughters, maybe, doing their, what would you call this, gymnastics, cheer maybe, cheerleading? Right, let me play with this. So first up, as per everything else, first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's straight. And for me, that involves going this way a little bit. Probably about there. Now the trouble is there, I feel like I've moved this girl too far towards the top of the frame. So I'm just going to bring in the bottom of the frame a little bit. I quite like the fact we've got the flag here in the background, so I'm going to keep that. That probably is about right for me on the crop and straighten. Now, you've got a tough image here, right? I'm guessing this was shot at very high ISO level. You can see a little bit of noise. But I'm not going to play with that too much. What I am going to do is just play with the warmth of it, because it feels a little bit yellow. So I'm just going to bring the temperature of it down, like probably, in fact, even just one click. That's better. And I'm just going to bring up the brightness of this image ever so slightly, whilst also turning down the highlights. And we've got a little bit of pink going on up here. This pink flag in the background, of course, has thrown that off a little bit. So I'm just going to tweak the tint by 1 as well. That's a little bit better for me. Gonna up the vibrance a little bit, get some of these nice blues and everything out, tweak the clarity. In fact, I might just call it down one more click as well. Yeah, I think that's helped a little bit. Probably not much vignette on this at all. Yeah, 2. There we go. I would say that is probably the way to go. Jeff, didn't do too much to that image, just a little bit, but hopefully it's improved it, and hopefully you like it. Right, our last photo. Let's have a look and see what we got. Okay, so Rob, name of champions, Rob. Rob Avis has sent this in. So it's an NFL game. Shot from the stands, he said in the message that he sent me. I can see you've had to use some high ISO level on this. It's a little bit noisy. Now, you haven't left me too much I can do with this, because you've cropped fairly tight when you've taken the photo, right? So can't really crop it anymore. I probably would straighten it slightly. I'd probably want it a little bit more this way, but the trouble is, as soon as I start doing that, I start chopping off toes and fingers and stuff. So I'm just going to go as far as I can without chopping anything off. One of the golden rules, right, guys? You don't want to start chopping off feet when you're playing with photos. You want to keep everything in the image. So I would say probably about there. Just going to bring it across slightly so I don't lose any of that toe or any of those fingers. Perfect. Okay, right, what would I do? I would bring this up ever so slightly. Going to bring up the shadows. Going to see if I play with the contrast, if it helps me to try to get rid of some of this noisiness in here. And I'm actually going to take the vibrance down ever so slightly on this, because I feel like it's a little bit too, like my eyes are a bit too taken away, especially by the green. Now, it might be actually that I need to go and play with the greens specifically. So I'm just going to tweak down the saturation of this green. Not too much, because you see it starts to turn it almost like black and white in the background. We're not about selective colour, guys. We're not doing that. But let's just bring down the saturation of that green a little bit, because actually that was a bit distracting for me from the photo. Back up here, so actually I haven't done that. I can bring my vibrance back to where it was. tiny bit more on that contrast. So I want to try and deal with, you see like when we go in on the photo, right, you can see that we've got this noise running through the colour. So I'm going to see if I can do much with that. I always say to people, don't worry too much about noise, because the important things are, look, this image is sharp, right? You've got things that were obviously moving, like the feet and the hand, tiny bit of movement in this hand here, but generally speaking, you've captured the action, and that is so much more important than worrying about not having noise in your image. But I'm just going to play with this ever so slightly. Just see if we can bring a little bit of that away. Yeah, actually, yeah, that has helped, and it's not softened it up too much. Just going to play with that tint ever so slightly, because again, we had so many greens going on there. Perfect, that looks good. And for me, that is where I would leave that image. Rob, I hope you liked it. Now, one more thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to export these images. Just going to export them to this folder which I had already set up, and when I export them, I'm not going to resize them, I'm going to sharpen them ever so slightly just for the screen. So you see what I've done, sharpen for screen standard amount, nothing too excessive. Can always come back in and play with them individually if I feel like they need more, but generally speaking, I think for what we're doing here, I think that will be enough, and we are going to export those images. And that's us just about done, guys, but let's have a little look at a before and after, right? I'd like to show you the before and after photos so you can see how they have come out. Okay, so first of all, we had the photo from Giannis. Gonna put that on the screen for you right here so you can see how it looks. And in comparison, here's what I've done with that photo. Little bit of a tweak, not necessarily a massive difference, but hopefully you liked it, Janice. Next up, we had our photo from Josh, so the ice hockey. This is how the shot looked originally. There's the photo from Josh, and then here's what I've done with it. Again, not massive changes, but little tweaks that I would like to think have improved the photo. Hopefully you like them too, Josh. Next up, we had this landscape one from Neil. So Neil, here's your original photo, and then here's what I've done with it right here. Again, I hope you like that. Nice little subtle changes, change the crop a little bit, but I feel like I've improved it in my personal opinion. Next up's the rugby photo from Doug. We had a complicated crop to play with on this one, but I think that's come out all right. Hopefully you guys like it, and hopefully Doug likes it, and Zach likes it as well, of course. I certainly hope so. Then we had another landscape shot, this shot of the bridge. Really like this one, the night shot. Here's the original photo. And then here's how it looks after I've played with it. Hopefully you guys enjoy the improvement on that one. Next up, we had the cheer photo from Jeff. Here's the original photo. And then here's what it looks like once I've done that little bit of work to it. Again, only subtle changes, nothing massive, but hopefully you like how it's come out. And last but certainly not least, here's the NFL photo from Rob. This is probably the one where you're going to see the least major changes. This is the original photo you can see right here. Then this is what I've done with it. And again, you can see it's not massive changes. Okay, guys, there's the photos. Right, let's spin back around to the table. And there we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I didn't manage to include your shot. Don't worry, if I've still got it and it's in that email inbox, I will still have it there and I might use it in a future episode. I just had to pick a random few for today's video. You guys might have seen we didn't just look at sports photos today. I did a couple of landscapes in there as well. That's absolutely fine. Send any photos you want to into that box and I will have a look at them and see if we can edit those shots. Whether I managed to get to your photo today or not, thank you very much anyway. Really appreciate you sending them. Keep on doing it and I will keep on making this series, don't worry. For you guys whose photos I did use, thank you so much for letting me do that. It was really fun to see some of the work that you guys have produced. Don't worry, I will send you guys the edited shots that I did. I'll make sure you get those back so you can have them if you would like them. In the meantime, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you on the next video.